All right, Bruchim Abayim, everyone. Just want to give my reflections on this idea about a two-state solution, one-state solution, what to do about what's going on in Eretz Yisrael and the Holy Land. For a long time, I've been a proponent of a quasi-one-state, quasi-five-state solution, which I call basically the federalist solution. Create 5 states with one central federal government, just like we have 50 states in the United States with one central federal government, united by a constitution, but the way that the federal government is supposed to be, that it's not this behemoth that it's turned into since Woodrow Wilson, but rather what it's supposed to be is just a loose union, not a mere confederacy, stronger than the confederacy, but a union of 50 states. And so too, although it could even be articles of confederation between 5 states in Eretz Yisrael. And again, I would say 2 Arab and 3, however you want to refer to it, Jewish or a people of Jewish ancestry, or whatever it is. I think it could work that maybe one could be a Haredi state, one could be a Dati state, one could be an ultra-Orthodox state, one could be a religious Zionist modern Orthodox state, one could be a secular Zionist state, and then 2 Arab states, obviously, since they're non-contiguous. And that's really the only reason why I'm even mentioning 3 Jewish states, is that to create some veto power that is similar to how the Senate has equal representation, and it could even be 4 or 5 Jewish states and 2 Arab states. And that would be the way to solve this issue. And one of the main reasons why I propose this is for religious reasons. I'm not a fan of the idea of a Jewish state on a federal level, but I don't have a problem with Jewish government on a state or local level from a religious standpoint. And so therefore, if if there, as a main factor in this would be to have a constitution that would protect religious freedom of all the citizens, different than what Israel has currently, where they have the Misrad Datot, where they have the Ministry of Religions, and they have, among those is the Chief Rabbinate of Israel. As a government function, I would like to see either the privatization of the Chief Rabbinate, much how the Eda Haredis is a private, non-government organization, or relegate that to one of the states, meaning there would be one state that would submit to the Rabbanut. That would be the modern Orthodox religious Zionist state, and then the secular Zionists wouldn't have to answer to them at all. However, the residents of any of those states would be free to practice whatever religion they would want. I should predicate this really with what Rav Soloveitchik said, is that as an American, it's really none of my business what they do in Israel. But this is just more or less, putting on my Kissinger hat and saying, as an American, this is my advice. Of not telling them what to do, but this, Lefi Anias Daiti, in my humble opinion, this is what I believe could work, could be better, or at least for a long time I believed that. After what happened on Simchas Torah on October 7th, it doesn't seem like we can really get too far with that. And although I still theologically believe that there should not be a Jewish state, a Jewish federal state, national state, I do believe certainly that the Jews in Eretz Yisrael should be able to live in peace, and whatever is necessary to do so should be sought out. And of course I would add to that constitution, prohibition against terrorism, and obviously any types of murderers or terrorists or anything like that should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But what we're seeing, though, is Israel is actually letting free criminals, and they'll let free 3 criminals to set free 1 innocent person who was kidnapped. So we're really in a horrific state. What's going on in among the Arabs who decide to call themselves Palestinians in the 1960s, it's really, really horrific. It's really evil, and it's in many ways, as has been said, worse than what the Nazis did. So then what's the answer? And I think right now we have to look at what happened, when Begin made peace. He gave back the Sinai to Egypt with the exception of Gaza. That was the one piece of Egypt he didn't give back to Egypt. I think it's time to give, since right now there are no Jews in Gaza, give Gaza to Egypt. Plain and simple. In fact, maybe even force Egypt, even though they probably don't want to annex Gaza, force Egypt to annex Gaza. And then perhaps also annex the Jewish neighborhoods in Yesha, in Judea and Samaria, which they call the West Bank, and the rest give to Jordan, and let them deal with these people who decide to call themselves Palestinians in the 1960s, because Israel can't deal with them anymore, and they cannot be trusted to have their own government. Obviously, they've proven that, and so let their fellow Muslims, their fellow Arabs, and most of the so-called Palestinians are really just Egyptians and Jordanians, with the exception of the children of Jews who were forced to convert to Islam. Those are the only quote-unquote indigenous Palestinians are actually Jews, or the children of Jews who were forced to convert to Islam. Some fairly recently, less than 100 years ago, this happened. At least the last time was during the riots in Hebron, during the pogrom in Hebron in 1929. So there could still be people alive today who were raised Jewish, who were born Jewish and forced to convert to Islam. And it happened also in the 1890s. There are Palestinian tribes that are Jewish, or at least of Jewish ancestry. Really, we should try, if they are halakhically Jewish, we should probably try to get them back to Judaism. And I know some who have come back to Judaism personally. Some who actually wound up moving to Jordan and other places. But nonetheless, I don't see any type of solution with the current, not only Palestinian government authorities or quasi-governmental authorities, but even with a lot of the people who decide to call themselves Palestinians 60 years ago. And the only solution I can see with them, again, the whole Jewish state issue we're going to have to put on the back burner, because it's not what we're dealing with now. The issue is this part of what to do with these Arabs who call themselves Palestinians. Give them to Egypt, give them to Jordan, and if they make problems with Egyptians and the Jordanians, no one's going to say anything the way they say stuff when the Israelis are trying to defend themselves, because nobody cares when Muslims kill other Muslims, and no one cares when communist Chinese kill and persecute Muslims. They only seem to care when people presenting themselves as Jews who might have Jewish ancestry or might be Jewish, even in faith, some of them, to some extent, are doing that because of what people like to call anti-Semitism, and it's sadly becoming more and more true. So on one hand, October 7th proved that Medinas Yisrael is not going to protect Jews, and really proved Zionism to be a failure for Jews. But instead of waking up and repenting from this heresy, Jews are doubling down on that heresy. But on the other hand, even pious Jews, when you see in New Square people waving Israeli flags at the Hasana, that's really crazy. Especially since New Square is also always supposed to be apolitical. So it's definitely something out of the ordinary here. But the bigger issue, like we said, is this part of the equation is the I can't see. I'll try to pass this guy. Is this issue with the with what's going on there? Is that it's untenable to try to make peace with these terrorists who are just so depraved and so evil. There's really nothing these are not people you can make peace with, and there are people who don't want peace. And so really the only way I think to fix this is give it back to Egypt and Jordan, even though I know Jordan is a new country too. But nonetheless, those are who had it before 1967. There never was a independent Palestinian state. These were, after 1948, that's who had these lands. Israel won wars against them, but they've since made peace with both Egypt and Jordan, and they have proven themselves to be peace partners. For the sake of security and peace, in my humble opinion, that's what Israel has to do, is give and almost force Egypt to take Gaza. The West Bank maybe we could deal with later because they're a little bit easier to deal with right now. But Gaza, just give Gaza to Egypt and let Egypt handle it. And if Egypt doesn't like it, if Egypt kills all 2 million people in Gaza, no one's going to care. They're only caring because Israel is doing it, which is unfortunate. And Israel is not doing that. Israel is trying their best to try to avoid any civilian casualties. Israel is highly moral, much more moral than any other army. War is hell. War is a horrible thing. But Israel is not the one who started the war, other than just by existing. And I know some people say that just Israel's existence, but I look at it in a metaphysical way that, yes, they're being punished for a sin, and it doesn't matter who, God has plenty of weapons in his arsenal, but right now we have to look at things in the political realm and just realize, I think I probably missed Bethany Mandel on the Hugh Hewitt show with my own ramblings. Can't believe this went on 13 minutes already. But I can't see any other solution. I know it's not going to happen. I know Egypt doesn't want Gaza, and who can blame them? But that's the political climate that we're in right now. And there's really nothing else that could be done, because and like we've said, nobody cares about the Uyghurs. Nobody cares what's going on in Pakistan, Afghanistan, all kinds of actual genocide going on in Africa. And meanwhile, Israel committed ethnic cleansing against their own people 15 years ago, more than that, 17 years ago, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, in Gaza, took all the Israelis, all the Jews out of Gaza, closed down Gush Katif, and then gave the Arabs who decided to call themselves Palestinians in the 1960s all kinds of free stuff. And instead of using that to become peace partners, they destroyed the synagogues, desecrated the synagogues, did all these things for almost 20 years while taking all the free stuff Israel gave them. And then they do this horrific, evil murder. And it's just wild. It's just evil. And then yet, people are thinking, I sent chills down my spine when I was in, I think it was in Allentown, Pennsylvania last week, and I saw a billboard with the Palestinian flag, and that said that they stand with Palestine, and I just had shivers down my spine. That's like putting up a sign that they stand with the Nazis. Nobody's standing with Putin, and if they are, they're keeping their mouth shut. They're not putting up billboards that they stand with Putin against Ukraine. And this is, I don't know. It's just crazy what's going on right now. I don't know what to do with this. It's really sad, troubling, and upsetting. But that's the world that we're in right now. And obviously, again, there's obviously something spiritual going on, and I see it myself with this story with someone who I was helping over the years, who turned to really, really sick of Avodah Zarah. And I spoke to people from all different wavelengths, and they all agree with what I've said about this issue. But it shows that there's a zeitgeist. There's a spirit of the time right now. As it says, in Ecclesiastes, there's a time for war and a time for peace. And as much as we have to pray for peace, and we have to pray, this is a Shas Sa'am, so we have to pray in a humble way, with our hands clenched, like the Shulchan Aruch says. But there's something going on in the world right now. And I would recommend listening to Rav Ariel Bar Tzadok. He has insights on these things. But what we have to do is we have to pray for peace and see things getting better. We know Rosh Chodesh Nisan is going to be a solar eclipse, and Chazal say that a solar eclipse is a bad sign for the Ummah Olam, but it's only because they follow the solar calendar. And there in the Eretz Yisrael, they're dealing with people who follow a pure lunar calendar, although we've had a few lunar eclipses too. Whatever it is. And of course we know that they say affects us, but also our enemies. I mean, that's supposed to be euphemism, but if that's, we have a lunar solar calendar, and again, that's happening Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right after we're having an Iber Yor, where we're making peace between the sun and the moon, essentially. And so something is going on, but don't get your hopes up for the good part of the eschatology, because it can get a lot worse before it gets better, and people shouldn't lose faith about that. And thinking back about Gush Katif, and I think there was another Emmanuel or somewhere else in that area, and it was Rav Shach, who said, when that gets taken down, don't lose faith, because there was an old Jew in Bnei Brak who said it would happen. The truth is, you could go back much further. We could look at the Chesed Lavram, and very scary. It's very frightening. Satmarov used to shiver and cry whenever he came across this passage in the Chesed Lavram, which means that he learned the Chesed Lavram more than once, and the Chesed Lavram says that when Mashiach comes, there's only going to be a few thousand Jews in Eretz Yisrael. So it's not going to be, the millions of Jews that are in Eretz Yisrael now are not going to stay there. We hope and pray that if that is actually something that will be literally true, although there are ways to interpret it otherwise. I know the Satmarov said, the Daled Amos around Russia loses Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. Maybe it could be Mafkia, the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, and it's not Eretz Yisrael. I don't know. But I know the way it's usually said is that they're going to go to a place called Midbar HaGoyim, and actually the Sfarim say that Kibbutz Goliath is not to Eretz Yisrael. It's first to a place called Midbar HaGoyim, the wilderness of the nations. Some people say it's Petra. Whatever it is, doesn't really matter. Could be America, could be anywhere. But it's a difficult time we're in. We just have to hope and pray that things do get better. God should have mercy on us and send Mashiach, because it could be Mashiach Hashem Karabai, and things could turn around. We all need to do tshuva. I know I certainly need to do tshuva. We're all struggling spiritually, physically, everything. But we got to do the best. All right, this has already gone on for 20 minutes. I know, and again, I know I don't like to talk about politics or anything, but these are scary, frightening times. We have to not lose hope. We have to not lose faith, because the tzaddikim say that the Iker Milchemes Gog and Magog, the main war of Gog and Magog, Gog and Magog, however they say that in English, is a spiritual one. It's a war of faith. The Heilige Rishner said that just before Mashiach comes, it'll be like trying to climb up an ice wall. Like we should not lose our faith, and to see someone who finished Shas fall into Avodah Zarah, it's so frightening and scary. So we hope and pray that everyone should do tshuva, and there should be a scholars quote Shemaim. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. We'll see you later.